The high seat of the Galactic Council was never silent, yet today the silence felt observed. Have the Terrans even responded to the ultimatum? Chancellor Valeth of the Varn hissed, his voice like dry silk brushing a blade. No, muttered Counselor Drex of the Kulari, eyes flickering across a pulsing hologram. And they haven't answered the relocation treaty, or the resource redistribution pact, or anything. A low chuckle vibrated from the Bracklon representative, a species known more for crushing moons than diplomacy. Maybe their little planet finally caved in on itself. They laughed, but it was the kind of laughter that waited for someone else to start it first. For 300 cycles, Earth had stayed quiet, not withdrawn, silent. They hadn't updated their embassy encryption keys, they hadn't returned the Council's envoys, they hadn't even shown up to condemn the annihilation of 3 minor allied worlds. We offered them place, Valeth snapped. A seat at this table, resources, technologies they couldn't dream of, and they vanished like ghosts. Ambassador Kelvarn of the Lorien took a breath, measured, slow, or like something that doesn't need our table. A ripple passed through the chamber, then a ping-high orbit surveillance from the edge of the Drecon belt lit up in a forgotten quadrant near Sol. A signal, primitive in structure, ancient in protocol, and yet unmistakably Terran. Is this a relay echo? One of the aides asked, frantically running the algorithm again. No, it's transmitting inward. The room shifted. Quiet. No words. Just the heavy gravity of dread forming from nothing. Kelvarn turned toward the display. The beacon that just activated, he said, each word slow, cracked with tension, was part of Earth's original planetary defense net. Impossible, hissed Valeth. Those systems were scrapped before the First Age. They don't even— It wasn't Earth, the aide whispered, pale and trembling. It came from the Ort. Something buried in their system's edge just powered up. Drex's voice broke the moment. So what, a rogue probe? A weather satellite? The aide stared straight ahead. No, sir, it's identifying itself. What designation? The screen blinked once. A name scrawled in old Terran block code. Unit Zo-1, Sovereign Guardian, awake. And then everything in the chamber froze. Kelvarn stood. They said Earth had no guardian left, that the old Titans were myths, jokes passed down by drunk human admirals. Valeth's voice was now barely audible. What was it built for? A pause. To defend Earth, if the galaxy ever forgot what fear felt like. No one laughed now, not even the Bracklon, and that was before Earth even responded. Outpost Theta 9 didn't go dark. It just stopped. 1 second it was there, tracking comet paths, running thermal scans near the Sol perimeter. The next, every feed went black. Not static, not corrupted, just absence. Like something had swallowed the signal whole. Bring up Theta 9's final transmission, barked Supreme Strategist Orus of the Rakai. His scales shimmered with unease as a fractured image loaded on the Council's primary war console. It was only 2 seconds long. A camera, shaking violently. A red arc of light bending against gravity. Then a low, distorted whisper, not in any known alien dialect, just one word, awake. The Council's silence was no longer confused. It was infected with something older, dread. Far out in the Ort, cloud, a shape began to shift beneath frozen methane. It was not a ship. It was not alive in any biological sense, but it had a mind, a will, a memory older than some Council empires. Buried beneath that icy crust, its AI core pulsed once, scanning ancient kill switches hard-coded by Terran engineers who had vanished before the Galactic Council's first charter, was inked, primary mission file loaded. Guardian status inactive. Query: why was I woken? Unsignal source. Hostile danger level. 8 Galactic Council detected. Response protocol. 0. Message delivered to Earth. No response needed. Awakening complete. The ice cracked, not with sound but with gravity distortion. Like the void was leaning away from what it knew was coming. Back in the Council's core chamber, Kelvarn stared at the spreading loss map. "We've now lost contact with 5 outposts in Sector Lyra," he muttered. "No calls for help. No distress beacons, not even wreckage. That's not an invasion," Oris said coldly. "That's erasure." Counselor Valeth spun toward him, his composure cracking. "We're not at war. Earth has no standing fleet, no official presence beyond the Mars belt. No visible presence," Kelvarn corrected. A projection unfolded, unfiltered heat signatures from long-range deep space sensors. An object was moving. Not fast, not hidden, just impossibly steady. No known propulsion signature, no chatter, no formation escort, just one name pulsing from its cold armor: Sovereign Guardian. It wasn't charging weapons. It wasn't even acknowledging scans. It was observing. Strategist Oris turned, voice like steel. "That's not a battleship." "Then, what is it?" someone asked. His response was soft. The last promise Earth made before it went silent, and somewhere beyond the Council's reach, within a system long dismissed as backward and broken, something old began to hum. It didn't ask for permission. It didn't ask for mercy. It simply confirmed the threat, and moved. The Grand Archivum on Cyrell Prime hadn't been accessed in over 200 years. Dust floated in zero-G chambers, undisturbed since the days when Earth had first been invited to the Council's table. But today, the doors opened. Under emergency order, diplomatic, clearance was overridden. Section 13B, Terran Historical Footprint, Red Flag Protocols. Kelvarn stood before a rusted alloy container stamped with words few aliens ever learned to read. English. His translator blinked as the ancient language processed. Property of United. Earth Strategic Defense Initiative Black Archive, do not resuscitate. "That's human military sarcasm," muttered Kelvarn, his tone grim. "It means exactly what it says, and also the opposite." He opened it. Inside were logs, physical ones, old-fashioned printouts, magnetic reels, something called a USB stick, redacted in parts, degraded in others. But the message was clear. Earth never trusted peace, not with aliens, not even with themselves. One document had survived better than the rest. A transmission labeled Event Horizon Directive, SG-01. Strategist Oris leaned in. "That's the Guardian," Kelvarn read aloud, voice tense. "If the Council ever turns Imperial, if Earth is isolated, if the stars forget, initiate. Sovereign Guardian. Not to wage war, not to win, but to remind." The room fell silent. "Remind who?" asked Valeth. Kelvarn looked up. "Everyone." Meanwhile, out in Sol System's quietest corner, the Guardian continued its path. Not toward inhabited planets, not toward outposts. It drifted along the same route it had taken when it was buried. Circular, ritualistic. Inside its armored belly, dormant systems began to glow. Not weapons. Memories. Projected in real time across alien sensor networks. Images. A ruined Earth. Skyline with alien ships descending overhead. A child, clutching a torn flag. A Terran battleship ramming 3 cruisers at lightfold speeds. Silence. It was a message sent without language. A reminder broadcast not in threats, but in scars. Back in the Council, Kelvarn placed the final page of the archive on the table. No coordinates. No access codes, just a single line. He turned it so the others could see. Built not to fight. Built so no one forgets why Earth had to. Valeth whispered. "They were preparing this before they even met us?" Oris answered for him. "They knew. That piece is just the pause between wars." The display behind them lit up again. The Guardian had stopped. Not in orbit. Not above a target, above Jupiter, waiting, not watching them, waiting for Earth's silence to end. It began as static, a low hum threaded through subspace relays, every frequency, every channel. It wasn't coded, it wasn't encrypted, it was human. Across the Council's 100 worlds, screens flickered. Ambassadors halted mid-sentence. Pilots froze in cockpits. Even the AI cores of battlecruisers paused, processing, and then they heard it. A child's voice. Crackling. Real. Unedited. "My name is Eli. I'm 6. Mom said to record this in case they come back." The voice broke, not with fear, but with a tremble of memory. "They said the stars were full of friends, but the ships that came weren't. I saw them take my sister, I saw them burn the sky, we tried to run. I don't think Earth will forget." Silence again. Then a transmission tag. Timestamp. 298 years ago. "Where is this feed coming from?" Counselor Drex snapped. Kelvarn's voice was low. "It's not coming from anywhere. The Guardian's broadcasting it across every known relay simultaneously." "Is that a declaration of war?" "No." He shook his head. "It's a mirror, and now the whole galaxy's looking into it." On a merchant vessel in the Veil system, a Valaxi trader wept. He remembered selling Terran refugees false passage codes. He thought they were animals, too emotional to navigate the stars. On a Threxian outpost, an old general closed her eyes. She had ordered orbital strikes on human colonies when the Council had feared Earth's growth. No one questioned her then. They applauded. Now, she trembled. Back aboard the Sovereign Guardian, the child's voice faded. In its place came something, new, not a recording, a voice alive. Now, it wasn't military, it wasn't official, just a man, calm, old, by the sound of it, but strong like gravel under pressure. "To those who remember Earth as weak, you only saw our silence. To those who thought we'd vanished, we listened. We remember who came, who left, who watched. And we remember why the Guardian was built." The voice paused. Then it delivered the line that would be repeated across every corner of the galaxy. "This is not vengeance. This is memory, and memory never forgets." The broadcast cut. No commands, no threats. Just silence. Again, but it no longer felt empty. It felt like Earth, and the galaxy finally realized humanity hadn't disappeared. They had just waited long enough for everyone to reveal who they really were. High Admiral Kreltan of the Zarnathi sat atop his obsidian throne, flanked by the 6 engines of conquest that had devoured 100 lesser worlds. Terrans send ghost stories. "We send fleets," he declared, tusks gleaming under warlight. The Council begged caution. He laughed. "Fear is a currency Earth can't afford." 6 hours later, 12 battleships crossed into the Sol system, each one bristling with disruptor, cannons, cloak spoilers, and gravity rippers designed to crush capital worlds. The Zarnathi didn't do reconnaissance. They announced themselves. Their war cruisers lit up the system like a solar flare, pinging every orbital station, rattling. "Dormant satellites, attention Earth. This is the Zarnathi Vanguard. You will stand down, show yourselves, or we will make you." For 23 minutes on nothing. Then, something moved. The Sovereign Guardian didn't deploy weapons. It turned, slowly, deliberately, facing them. "Sir." "It's locking something," muttered the Zarnathi helmsman. "Shields?" Kreltan asked, narrowing his eyes. "No. No energy build detected. But our long-range scanners are distorting." "Jamming?" "No. It's something else." Then the Guardian spoke. No words, no sound. Just a pulse. A signal burst so dense and ancient it bypassed modern decoders. It hit every Zarnathi ship like a spear through time. Their war logs reset. Targeting software melted. Holographic IDs were replaced with one single Terran phrase: "This is what you forgot." The fleet commander screamed, across every bridge, the same hallucination. A burning sky. A single human standing in the ash. Eyes glowing, not with power but with memory. And then, Stillness. All 12 ships were found 48 hours later. No signs of battle, no scorch marks, no visible hull damage. But inside, every crew member had been turned to glass, frozen in place, mouths open, as if they had seen something they could not comprehend and never would. High Admiral Krylos never sent another ship. He resigned. He was last seen weeping in the great salt flats of Zarnath, mumbling, "It remembered my face." Back at the council, Kelvarn whispered what no one dared say aloud. Earth is not threatening us. They're reminding us what happens when you forget them. And now, the Guardian was turning again, this time, not randomly, toward the council itself. Council worlds weren't built for war, not the core ones anyway. They were built on treaties, traditions, and the assumption that no one would be foolish enough to strike at the galaxy's political heart until now. Because the Guardian wasn't heading toward a border. It was gliding, smooth, soundless, toward the Concord star cluster, the core, the seat. "This is symbolic aggression," shouted Counselor Terran of the Malaran. "Earth is trying to embarrass us." "They're not trying," Kelvarn replied. "They're succeeding." Dozens of fleets began converging, not to attack, not yet, just to watch, to form a perimeter, to convince themselves that numbers still meant power. On board the central relay station above Concord Prime, Military Commander Velos prepared intercept drones. "What are your orders if it crosses the boundary?" his aide asked. Velos didn't answer. He didn't have one, because the Guardian was moving like gravity, like inevitability. On board the ship, no crew stirred. No systems blinked. It was not manned. It was meant. Inside, ancient Terran code ticked forward with machine patience. Proximity alert. Council space detected. Engaging memory layer 2. Preparing psychological imprint sequence. The Guardian's hull shimmered, not with light. With history. Hundreds of Terran ships began to project from its surface. Not real, not solid, but true. The wreckage of colonies the Council said they didn't attack. Human relief ships destroyed by mistaken identifications. Terran refugees turned away by smiling diplomats, ghosts made of data, pain made visible. Every fleet commander saw something different. To the Garaki, it projected the blackened bones of their ambassador, killed during peace talks Earth had tried to mediate. To the Sorelian observers, it showed the moment they betrayed a human colony for Council favor, and how Earth quietly pulled its people back, said nothing, and waited. To the Varn, it simply showed a mirror, their own reflection, but older, weaker, afraid, and across every bridge, in a voice barely audible above silence, "We do not come to strike. We come so you can see. You ruled in light, because Earth remained in shadow. That ends now." Silence is not weakness. Silence is the sound before thunder. In the Grand Council Hall, the delegates sat frozen. No votes, no declarations. Just the quiet understanding that something ancient was now standing outside their door. It wasn't here to negotiate. It wasn't here for war. It was simply here. And the sound of nothing moving outside that window? That was silence. Marching. They said the banners would never fall, that the 1,000 emblems of the Galactic Council, stretching back to its founding species, would always hang over the Hall of Accord. But today, without wind, without tremor, they began to droop, then peel, then flutter down one by one like old paint off a forgotten wall. No alarms were triggered, no sabotage was detected. The Council's defense AI simply reported, "Atmospheric disruption, nonviolent, gravitational anomaly detected." But they all knew the truth. The Guardian had arrived. It didn't descend in a blaze. It didn't demand entry. It simply hovered over the Council's central moon, so massive it eclipsed both stars in orbit. Its shadow fell across 5 continents, and with that shadow came silence. Not peace, not fear. Something heavier. Recognition. Inside, the hall, emergency protocol activated. Shield fields, armor lockdown, delegates fled. But the old ones, the ones who remembered first contact, stayed behind. Kelvarn stood among them. He didn't blink as the great glass ceiling above him turned dark with the Guardian's presence. "It's not attacking," someone whispered. "No," Kelvarn said softly. "It's witnessing." Across dozens of Council-controlled worlds, something eerie began to happen. Monuments to the defeat of Terran aggression cracked down the middle. Museums cataloging primitive human tech spontaneously shut down, AI exhibits erasing themselves. Broadcasts playing anti-Terran propaganda flickered, then were replaced by still images. Images of Earth, not in power, not in flames, but still, waiting, watching. A child looking up at the stars. An old Terran soldier sitting alone with his medals. The planet, half lit, half shadow, quiet. On the diplomatic moon of Syra, a statue of the Council's first conquest, a broken human helmet beneath a Threxian boot imploded. Not from a blast, from shame. The materials turned to dust. No one touched them. No one had to. Back in the Grand Hall, Kelvarn looked up one last time. The ceiling now reflected Earth. Blue, bruised, beautiful, alive. He turned to the remaining delegates. They thought Earth was gone. He stepped forward. They were wrong. And then the Guardian spoke. Not through speakers. Not through code. Just a presence, echoing in every mind at once. "We will not ask for a seat. We built the table before. You even learned to walk. We are not your equal. We are your memory." Outside, the last banner fell, the one that read, "Unity through superiority," and no one bothered to pick it up. Across the stars, screens flickered, not with orders, not with threats, with a memory, raw, unfiltered, seared into every Council network by the Guardian's will. At first, just static. Then, clarity. The final hours of Earth's silence. A grainy feed from an old Terran orbital station. Sirens. Explosions in the background. A man's voice, ragged with exhaustion. "This is Commander Jalen Reese of Earth Defense Command. If anyone is out there, anyone, we held as long as we could." Behind him, smoke billowed. Earth's sky, once blue, now lit with descending fire. They said the Council would help. That unity meant protection. He coughed, looked down. They lied. Another. Clipped children huddled inside what looked like a metro tunnel. A woman wrapping a boy in a Terran flag. Not as pride, but as insulation. The flag was stained. Not with blood. With soot. "We don't need heroes," the woman whispered. "We just need witnesses." Then came the final frame. A Terran fleet. What was left of it, turning back toward Earth. They didn't try to escape. They knew. Instead, they deployed a signal. Not a weapon. A beacon. Marked SG-01 for the day they remember. And with that, the memory ended. Across the galaxy, silence once again took hold. But now it was unbearable. Because the truth wasn't that Earth had lost. It was that Earth had chosen silence over vengeance, that they had waited, not to be pitied, not to be saved, but to make sure that everyone saw. On the floor of the Council, the delegates said nothing. For once, the Varn didn't posture. The Zarnathi didn't bark. Even the Bracklon, war-born and honor-obsessed, hung their heads. Kelvarn looked up at the projection still hovering. Earth, spinning slowly. No warships around it. No laser grids. No fleets. Just home. He whispered, "You didn't fall. You watched us fall." And somewhere above them, within the Sovereign Guardian's ancient core, a final sequence activated. Final directive engaged. Judgment concluded. Message imprint delivered. But it didn't leave. It stayed. Because memory once released doesn't fade. It echoes. In ash. In steel. In every broken promise Earth endured and turned into armor. and the galaxy would never forget again. The council called an emergency session, again. But this time, no one yelled, no one postured. They were quiet, humbled, and terrified. Across the eye, chamber proposals flooded in, full council membership for Earth retroactively, access to all defense treaties and archives, joint command of peacekeeping fleets, official apology across all systems, desperation wrapped in diplomacy. Kelvarn read the draft aloud. We offer Earth everything we denied them, in exchange for peace, for clarity. Horus muttered. You don't offer peace to something that didn't declare war. Everyone turned to him. He was right. The Guardian hadn't fired a shot, hadn't threatened a planet, hadn't issued demands, but it had changed the stars. As the vote passed unanimously, the message was sent. The Council's greatest olive branch beamed directly to Earth's old embassy codes. Everyone waited, for minutes, then hours. No reply. Until the Guardian stirred. A low harmonic hum passed through space, heard in orbiting stations, satellites, even inside sealed command bridges. It was not a sound. It was a decision. The Guardian lit up with a final projection. One line. Simple. Branded. Across every sky in Council territory. We are not rejoining the galaxy. We are reminding it why it feared us in the first place. Then another voice followed. Not the gravel-toned commander, not the AI, but a woman's voice, clear, unwavering. We watched, we endured, we rebuilt alone, not because we were weak, but because your galaxy never deserved us. We don't want your table. We were the architects of it. You broke it. We remembered. And with that, the Guardian turned. Not away, not in retreat. It began to ascend. Beyond Council, space, beyond mapped stars, not because Earth was hiding, because Earth was done being found. The banners did not rise again. The statues were not rebuilt. The Council no longer debated Earth's return, because Earth had never left. It had only been watching, waiting for the galaxy to forget just long enough, so it could make sure they never did again. Final pulse, transmission. This was not war. This was history correcting itself. Earth does not kneel. Earth remembers. And now, so do you.